Hello everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Let's Analyze! Today, we'll be taking a look at legendary Lyn and the horrible secret behind her. Now, I'm the type of guy who makes videos when I have time. So when I finally got back home from taking my little sister to dance lessons because my mother forced me to do such a horrible thing in my day off, I decided to take a look-see at what some of the people have been saying about legendary Lyn, since I didn't get around to make my opinion about her known yet. Now, I've seen people call her terrible, or mediocre, or even compare her to Setsuna, but I know the real truth, the whole truth, the secret behind legendary Lyn. You see, I discovered that she was actually Rebecca all along. The mirror of truth told me this. Now, take a look at these stats. Notice a trend here. That's right, this so-called legendary Lyn is actually the evolved form of Rebecca, gaining 2 to attack and speed, which can be made up with refineries, while the rest of her defenses are almost identical. I find it hilarious that despite the fact that these two have similar roles, Rebecca is almost 2 ranks lower than her legendary form. But then again, it is Game Press we're talking about here. They're not very educated. I mean, they're even suggesting to her to use Swift Sparrow with those stats. Hello, there are better archers for player face playstyle? It's like they'll probably suggest using Fire Sweep Bow on her the moment I turn my head. Swift Sparrow does you completely no good on the defense, which is one of the most important qualities that legendary Lyn has given her kit and the way she is designed. Well, I'll explain that as we go. Anyway, enough thrashing those guys. So compared to Setsuna, who is also fast and hits like a wet noodle, Setsuna lacks the 4 extra points in resistance. This resistance is key to making legendary Rebecca work, thanks to her ability to ploy and shape the enemy whichever way she sees fit through her debuffs. Now, before I go over what I believe is the best kit for legendary Lyn, if you hadn't seen my video on Rebecca 2 months ago, I would suggest taking a look at it later so that you can properly appreciate the power that is Rebecca. I think those guys from Intelligence Systems must have seen that horrible thing, because that's exactly how legendary Lyn is meant to be played. I have enclosed the link in the description here. Now, moving forward, here's a pair of nearly identical build between legendary Rebecca and Rebecca. The level of similarity between the two is terrifying. And with the way Lyn looks, I'm 100% she's actually just Rebecca who fixed her hair to look like Lyn and then became a city Mongolian. We'll begin the comparison from top to bottom, and I'll explain fully on how they work. So first, the main difference between the two, their weapons. Like Lyn has the Swift Mulagir, which provides the healthy 14 might for pref weapons, plus 3 res, and plus 5 attack and speed dual phase combat buffs if there are more allies nearby within 2 spaces than there are enemies. This is a highly aggressive bait weapon that allows her to crush the enemy to death. With a sudden increase in attack and power, she can quickly turn the tables on her attackers, even by the off chance that she might get doubled for whatever reason, while slaughtering most units on the counter that are foolish enough to challenge her. The plus 3 res on this thing is also quite a boon, since it's a visible stat increase she can ploy against a larger variety of foes. Meanwhile, Rebecca uses the guard bow, which provides space speed or any other stats to match Lyndis Khan's power creep stats, while also giving her unrivaled ranged defenses to tank and counter an enemy to death, especially if glacies get involved. It doesn't have any further restrictions besides that you have to be the one receiving an attack to get this buff. So both bows are great options for baiting, though Swifty does get the added bonus of being able to quickly go into the offensive as long as their allies have boot. Next is Ardent Sacrifice. Both Lyndis Khan and Rebecca have 40 HP or below if they carry minus HP IVs, allowing them to instantly go into desperation should the situation calls for it. Of course, there are other options that are probably safer, like reposition. But for the sake of this showcase, the 40 HP thing is an option that these two can use. Next, Glacies is a powerful skill for both of them to use. The idea is that both of them will tank the enemy to death, preferably without proccing Glacies, and then blowing their load on someone else for another kill. Or perhaps using Infantry Pulse or something to instantly get Glacies as soon as they're attacked by the enemy, and then proceed to rip their faces off. Even more so for Lyn, because she gives HP to other units, so it is far more likely that she'll be the one reaping the benefits. Next is the timeless dual-phase classic for the A slot, Fury. Fury is a beautiful skill. Yeah, I know people say it's generic, you can easily pick it up from Hinata, but you know what, damn it, it is just that good. A visible stat increase meant that both units can ploy harder, while the increased bulk, and added attack, and speed for both player and enemy phases allow them to perform their bait and slaughter strategies with greater efficiency. The fury damage that is meant to be a detriment can even be taken to be the cause of hitting desperation. It is just such an awesome A slot to use for that purpose. In comparison, Laws of Sakai, the city skill, which legendary Lyn gets, is a far more inferior option. Though it does give out 4 to all stats compared to Fury's 3, the stats are not visible. It only procs when the enemy attacks you, and you also have to make sure you have 2 allies near you. 2. So these factors make this a terrible skill to have compared to Fury, and is only suited for those who hoard themselves out for arena points. As for the B skill, we have Desperation. Don't really need to explain how it works, because, it allows both of them to spray all sorts of people to death with no repercussions as long as there's 25% health or less. Guard and Vantage, they both work, but I find Desperation the most deadly option among B skills for them. Unless ranged units get something similar to, say, Wrath one day. But chill skills are good, but then again, I think those are better for supporting units rather than for these guys. Desperation is probably the way to go for them. Next, we have the C skills. Yes, it's a flexible skill that you can tailor depending on your team, but Death Ploy is something horrible that allows both Rebecca's to tear into the enemy! That extra 10 damage is no laughing matter. And if you would prefer to take less damage instead, well then, you can pick your attack ploy. Want to make sure you double someone? Speed ploy. Resistance is a much more important stat these days compared to before. And finally, we have our seals. Distant defense is a fine option for both of them because both units are units that tank range attacks and reply in kind. Now, plus speed is rather good for doubling, especially in Rebecca's case because she doesn't really have a bow that gives her more speed. If they both have plus speed IVs, they can use the seal and they can reach a grand total of 49 speed before buffs, which is quite considerable, though not really necessary, since you get all the stat increases you'll need while baiting an attack because your buddies are nearby and they give like stat bonuses. If you want, you can also run attack seal if you feel that they can tank and double just fine without these previous options. Now, one other wonderful thing is that since Lyndis Khan is the giver, while Rebecca is the receiver due to blessings, Rebecca can catch up to City Mongolian Lyn's power creep stats and can also become tankier due to the increased HP from the blessings. This does kind of suck if you use Ardent Sacrifice, but it's not necessarily a bad thing because reposition is probably safer anyhow. Well, that's about it for today. So that's how they work, tank and attack, rip people to shreds. I thank you all for watching. Until next time.